using Pythagoras' theory of right-angled triangles, he would take an angle from the top of his periscope to the top of his target. The intelligence gathered from a common book that every navy carries called Jane's Fighting Ships. He takes the tangent of the angle from his scope to the top of his target and gives him a range. That's his main thing, his range. He can work out the target's direction and speed, and once we've done that, we get a firing solution fed through that computer, fed through the captain's head. We aim off and fire our torpedoes, and that's the way it's done. Off they go. Once they're on their way, there's nothing we can do with them. Modern torpedoes, I said before, you can control inside the submarine, and then ones you can't. And once it's gone, it's gone. If you miss, this happens. We're going to come under counter-attack now. If you listen for the sonar, the quicker the pings, the closer the target. And then the propellers, as they pass over the top, another noise. When you're operating with warships, you used to hear all the time. I'm talking about friendly warships now. And then we're going to be depth charged from about a mile away. Don't use depth charges anymore. Old out, they use missiles and torpedoes to sink submarines. Here's the propellers coming. Hear this all the time. To actually put a hole in a submarine, they'd need to be within 20-30 metres, over from a mile out away. But if they were detonating at that close, it would shake the submarine up quite badly. Okay. Now, this periscope was manned all the time when we were at periscope depth. Sometimes it was dark on the outside, so it was always dark on the inside. Okay. And the darker it got out there, the darker it got in here, and it used to be always darker on the inside than the outside, so this guy could pick up any light source. Okay, so if there's any light source out there, you'd see it. Should anything untoward happen, which happened now and again, and you was likely to get run over, he'd shout out one order, flood cue. The guy here would instantly pull that lever there, and we'd dive. If we're going along a 55 feet periscope depth, in 10 seconds, a tank forward would take on 5.5 tons of seawater ballast. The submarine would drop like a stone. Would be twice that depth in a few seconds, 110 feet. Over the top of us would go whatever was a problem. We'd shut that off, blow that tank, get ourselves sorted out, come back up, and carry on doing what we was doing the first time. Okay, so that's our one way of keeping us safe. And this is what this guy here was doing all the time. To say when the scope was up, he could take photographs through it as well. The thing about, I told you we all slept fully dressed. It was usually in the dark up there. One thing the only thing you took off before you got in your sleeping bag was your shoes. Very important to remember where your shoes were, because it's dark in the submarine. It's as dark as you can get. You can't get any darker in here when you're dived than anywhere else on the planet, because he's down the bottom of a mine with no lights on. It's exactly the same. No natural light. Okay, so you're all asleep in there. And the captain wants to dive a submarine. Another sound effect here, quite loud this one. He's pressing back, always twice. First time might be an accident. Second time, the submarine's going to dive. Officer watch and look out, come down the tower, shutting the upper lid straight away. The helmsman puts half head group up on the telegraphs, group up being a battery arrangement. Two planesmen put their planes to dive. The guy on the panel here opens these valves. The submarine is on its way. The submarine will be underwater in just around 2 minutes. At that time, the captain wants every member of his crew at their diving station ready to go. Okay, there's no way you've seen that passageway in that bunk space. 30 odd people asleep up there, can get out of bed, try and get themselves dressed, find their shoes, get where they're going in the dark in 2 minutes. It doesn't happen. So that everyone is dressed ready to go all the time. That might not be the reason the captain wants you out of your bunk just to dive. If you want to carry out an attack or something going wrong inside the submarine when it's dived, he presses another alarm known as a night alarm. Has the same effect. When that starts beeping, everyone out, everyone at their diving station or emergency station, whichever's going on. I mean, the submarines do catch fire. We used to have, anyone heard the term telemotor before? Telemotor is the old-fashioned word or name for hydraulics. Never went out in submarines, always telemotor in conventional submarines. But if that bursts, which you do from time, that's spraying oil about, gets on something electrical, we've got a fire. Happens from time to time. All disasters in a submarine are fault dived. You do not surface if you've got a fire or an emergency going on, because you may be in combat, and if you surface, your enemy are going to sink you. So you do it all dived. The submarine is filling with smoke and it's dark and everyone's got to be at it. You cannot be getting out of bed and getting dressed. You've got to be ready to go to keep the submarine safe. That's what goes on down here. Okay, we're now going to make our way a bit further aft. First office, radar office. Very rarely use radar, because if we put our radar mast up, which is just here, and send radar, the enemy will pick up our transmissions. All radar signatures are recognised by each other. They know there's a submarine about. The next office, where you can hear the Morse code going, that's our signals office. We used to receive signals by Morse in the old days, and then it was decoded in there. Then there's the toilets and bathrooms. Now this is the first class of submarine the Royal Navy had toilets with doors on. Prior to this class, they used to stick toilets wherever they could. There was always one in the forward mess with a dwarf bulkhead. So everyone has to do certain things at certain times. The bloke sat there doing what he's doing, you're sat here eating your dinner waiting to go and watch. You weren't the only one who knew what he was doing. Everyone knew what he was doing, because once he'd done it, he had to ask the control and permission to blow it over the side. One lot at a time, only blow it down to periscope depth. You're not popular if you went to the toilet when you was deep, because it couldn't be blown. Okay? So you could only blow it down to periscope depth, and they'd have to ask permission to blow it. At this class of submarine, they stuck all the toilets in one place because they put a sewage tank. However, it's not without problems. If you go in those toilets and shut the doors, they're made of aluminium and wood. When this submarine's at periscope depth, the pressure hull is 22 foot 9 3/4 inches, I believe, in diameter. When it's at 500 feet, it's probably nearer 22 foot. I'd say under compression, you go in those toilets and the submarine goes deep, you're safer in there than you would be in the vaults of the Bank of England. You're not getting out. They are clamped so tight. No one's going to get you out. You wait in there until the submarine comes to shallow and you can open the doors again. If you're due on watch and you're stuck in there, your mate ain't going to be too pleased you're stuck in one of the traps in there, are they? Okay, so word of warning, if you're going to go in there and the submarine's going deep, don't shut the door, or don't go in there at all is my best advice. Okay, then you come to the bathrooms. Only a couple of sinks in them, only used 1 hour before we come back into harbour, or you can clean your teeth after a watch, but that's about as far as it goes. We used to keep our eggs in there because it's right opposite the galley. Okay, and the chef didn't want to wander too far to find his eggs. That's the only thing apart from the spuds and the bread that was fresh. And you see the galley there, 65 meals 3 times a day and bread after a week. We'll see you down in the engine room in a minute, and we'll make some more noises down there.